Very good morning to our viewers all across the world. Welcome to your poetic interlude on the weekend show, commemorating what we're talking about, human rights, for the last few weeks. I'm going to do a piece today about human rights titled Burying Human Rights Alive. Democracy is dead when the institutions of human rights are not functional or deprivational. Democracy is dead when the institutions of justice are buried alive, like horsemen that perish with kings as eternal slaves. And that role to be buried alongside the dead is not for barbarians. Their views rekindle to utmost barbarity. Human rights are buried alive where there is no rule of law, where the law becomes a forceful imposition, where the basic necessities of humanity are uncatered for, where government becomes the impediment to justice, where the trial times are for the austerity of hopelessness, more hopeless disjoint from the accordance of a fricating constitution that has no survey for citizenry inclusion. Illegalities are kept where tyranny is residual, where fallacy is applauded in plaudits, where democracy is concealed, where equity is mismanaged. The fruit of all these deeds leads to impoverishing a nation and wedging it in mass poverty. And one might ask, how does human rights concern poverty? It does, because only the rich can buy human rights. Human rights violations are the greatest evils exacerbated in the archive of the analogous. It's only deceitful monopoly that one sect has freedom of rights as they choose, while the poor are helpless and repressed. This was juvenile judiciary. These were illegal legislatures. The state of lack of obeisance to the rule of law are a corrosive conjunction, irretrievable, irreparable, and a misdeed without the thought of purposeful procreation. Some allege there is still a molecule of human rights to savour out there, but there's nothing unknown of their familiarity. A concoction of government brutality, of economic abnormality, of insecure authorizations, of ineffectual policies. These are just the periphery discounts and not the gruesome. The funeral of justice wakes the apparition of injustice, elasticity maimed of its breaking points or yielding resorts. A society of injustice buries human rights alive. And it's easy for the elites to make ad hoc plans in their pursuit for human rights than the poor. Inflation congests to some inflated pockets and to some deflated pockets. And they make sure they ensure the death of human rights. But the rule of law proposes to us the most secure assessments of socialization, where we are to interact freely in the process of nation building. And when human rights are buried alive, more visible humans are buried alongside. And soon they start their processions to believe in the mystery of recalcitrance. We need no security than the security of our basic human rights. But we are susceptible to social bigotry and malice, like religious fanaticism, like social illogism and character defamy, where all forms of morality and integrity are abused and can be found only in the cemetery for the case of human rights. What is the purpose of life without a right to life? The arms of civil rights are not extended onto the grave. Our human rights are here on earth or nowhere else. And the law is ignorance that pertains our true freedom. And the contemplation is the solemn question, wealth or justice? Many people will choose wealth and ignore justice. But it was their children who paid the price for such reproach. They were born into the chain of injustice. They themselves were equally as vulnerable. And to me, these are insoluble excretions of myopia. To look further is to see justice on the other end, drowning for its self-sustainability. And on the other hand, for all the years they seek retribution, they must fall back to justice. And the sooner they realized, the later the society couldn't collapse. Because a society imbued with equity and justice can never be shortchanged by retardation. To sabotage the rights of a people is very cruel. It's very unsympathetic. Injustice makes the world so uneven, despoiled, shattered, and bruised. And now we are divulged into this abnormality of discretion, perturbed by this distasteful pomegranate. Yes, this pomegranate I speak of is one of injustice. And burying human rights is really, really a case of we looking into why do we have to bury human rights? So for the past 3 weeks, we even had last week someone sent from the federal government to talk about human rights, to lecture Nigerians, to let them know that these are things that we need and are our basic commodities. my lovely audience all across the world. I hope you've enjoyed listening to Your Poetic Interlude on the Weekend Show. I want to shout out to my lovely producer Andy Madiki, Mr. Mano Balagoon, all my lovely friends at the Weekend Show. I want to shout out to Missy Diat. Please don't go anywhere and stay tuned because we have more coming up for you on the Weekend Show.